Has America always been a land of peace and prosperity? A simple question, but the answer is far more complex than one might initially think. You see, beneath the layers of history, hidden in the dark corners of the past, there are tales of turmoil and tragedy that have been conveniently forgotten or meticulously erased from our collective memory. One of the most significant of these forgotten stories hails from the Heartland, a place known as Greenwood in Tulsa, Oklahoma. A prosperous community that against all odds thrived in a time of rampant segregation and prejudice. Yet, its light was extinguished, not gradually over time, but suddenly and violently. Why, you might ask? How could such a thriving community be wiped off the map? And why has its story been concealed for so long? The answers to these questions reveal a harsh truth about our history. The story we're about to uncover is one that has been buried for almost a century. In the early 1900s, Greenwood, a district in Tulsa, Oklahoma, was a beacon of prosperity. This was a time when racial segregation was the norm, a time when the color of one's skin could determine their destiny. Yet despite the odds, Greenwood thrived. It was a place where African American businesses flourished, where the community prospered, where dreams were not only dreamt, but also realized. A self-sufficient community, Greenwood was a testament to the resilience and entrepreneurial spirit of its residents. The district was home to over 600 businesses, including banks, restaurants, grocery stores, clothiers, movie theaters, and a hospital. It was a bustling economy, a vibrant community, a symbol of what could be achieved even in the face of adversity. This prosperity earned Greenwood the nickname Black Wall Street, a moniker that was not only a nod to its economic success, but also a proud declaration of its identity. Here was a place where African Americans, often denied opportunities elsewhere, could prosper and thrive. A place where they could build a life of dignity and respect. A place where they were not just surviving, but thriving. But Greenwood was more than just a prosperous district. It was a community. It was a place where children could receive quality education, where families could live in well-kept homes, where people could gather in churches to pray and in parks to play. It was a place of hope, a place of dreams, a place of possibilities. Yet the prosperity of Greenwood was not just about the wealth it generated. It was about the spirit of its people, their determination to rise above their circumstances, their resolve to build a better future for themselves and their children. It was about the community they built, the bonds they forged, the identity they carved. Greenwood was indeed a beacon of prosperity, not just in economic terms, but also in terms of community, resilience, and hope. But this beacon, this haven of prosperity, was not destined to last. A single incident in 1921 set off a chain of events that would forever change Greenwood. Tensions, already high due to the racial segregation of the time, were ignited by an incident in an elevator involving a young black man and a white woman. The details of what transpired remain largely unclear, with accounts varying wildly and concrete evidence lacking. What we do know is that the man was arrested, rumors started to circulate about an impending lynching, and the local white newspapers did little to quell these rumors. In fact, they seemed to fan the flames of racial tension, leading to a frenzy of fear and suspicion that gripped the entire community. This was a critical moment, a moment where voices of reason and truth could have quelled the rising storm. But instead, the seeds of chaos were sown, setting the stage for a horrifying onslaught. And then, on a fateful night, Greenwood was set ablaze. A mob descended upon Greenwood, wreaking havoc and destruction. It was the night of May the 31st, 1921. The peaceful, prosperous streets of Greenwood were transformed into a battlefield of terror. The mob, fueled by rumors and racial tension, unleashed their fury on the thriving district. Fires ignited the night sky as buildings, homes, and dreams went up in smoke. The scent of burning timber and the sounds of splintering wood filled the air. Businesses that once stood as symbols of African American prosperity were reduced to ashes. The chaos didn't stop at the destruction of property. Lives were in danger, and the community's pleas for help seemed to fall on deaf ears. The authorities were grossly unprepared for the magnitude of the violence. The police force, outnumbered and overwhelmed, failed to maintain control. The fire department, unable to navigate through the raging mob, watched helplessly as Greenwood burned. As the night wore on, the violence escalated. Residents of Greenwood, outnumbered and outgunned, made valiant efforts to protect their homes and their community. But the mob was relentless. They looted homes, terrorized families, and took control of the streets that were once filled with laughter and life. The night was long, and the darkness was punctuated by the glow of flames, the echo of gunshots, and the cries of the terrified residents. The mob continued their rampage, leaving a trail of devastation in their wake. The events of that night were a stark contrast to the world Greenwood had built. A world where African Americans could thrive against all odds. A world that was now being torn down brick by brick by a mob driven by fear and hatred. As the first rays of dawn broke through the smoke-filled sky, the night of destruction came to an end. But the damage was done. Greenwood, once a beacon of hope and prosperity, was now a smoldering ruin. The streets were silent, save for the crackling of embers and the mournful wail of a city in despair. By dawn, Greenwood was in ruins. In the aftermath, Greenwood was a shadow of its former self. The once thriving district was left in ruins, its vibrant streets now a stark reminder of the violence it had endured. The remnants of hundreds of businesses, homes, and dreams lay scattered amongst the ashes. The heart of Black Wall Street ceased to beat. The people of Greenwood, once proud business owners, scholars, and artisans, were displaced. Over 10,000 residents found themselves homeless, their livelihoods shattered. Many were unjustly arrested, held under suspicion without evidence or trial, their rights as citizens blatantly disregarded. The thriving community that had once stood as a beacon of African American prosperity was no more. But the destruction didn't stop with the physical. The incident, this dark chapter in our nation's history, was systematically erased from records. There was a deafening silence surrounding the events that had transpired. The newspapers that had once fanned the flames of racial tension now fell mute. The incident was not mentioned in official reports, nor was it included in history textbooks. It was as if Greenwood, its prosperity and its downfall, had never existed. This deliberate omission, this erasure from collective memory, only served to deepen the wounds inflicted on the Greenwood community. The survivors were left to pick up the pieces of their shattered lives, their suffering unacknowledged, their story untold. The loss was not merely material. It was the loss of a prosperous community, of a collective identity, of a dream. The dream of Greenwood, a self-sufficient, flourishing African-American community, was reduced to ashes, its memory almost extinguished. And so, a prosperous community was reduced to ashes, its story almost lost to time. But the spirit of Greenwood, the spirit of resilience and hope, could not be completely erased. It lingered, a faint echo in the annals of history, waiting for the day it would be heard once again. But the story of Greenwood refuses to be forgotten. In the wake of silence and denial, a new wave of investigations and public awareness began to emerge. Modern historians, journalists, and community activists embarked on a quest to unearth the buried stories of Greenwood. They delved into archives, interviewed surviving descendants, and brought the lost narrative of Black Wall Street to the fore. Memorials now stand in Tulsa, a poignant reminder of the vibrant community that once thrived in Greenwood. The Black Wall Street Memorial, the Greenwood Cultural Center, and the recently dedicated Greenwood Rising History Center all serve as testaments to the resilience and spirit of the Greenwood community. These sites not only honor the memory of those lost, but also celebrate the triumphs of a community that, against all odds, had built a prosperous enclave of African American businesses and culture. Public awareness of the Greenwood tragedy has grown over the years. Schools, institutions, and individuals are now engaging with this aspect of history more openly, more truthfully. The once hidden story of Greenwood is being woven back into the tapestry of American history, restoring a chapter that was unjustly ripped away. Yet, as we remember Greenwood, we do so not to dwell in the past, but to learn from it. The story of Greenwood is a stark reminder of the power of community, the destructive force of unchecked hatred, and the enduring strength of resilience. It underscores the importance of remembering, of keeping the past alive, not as a specter that haunts us, but as a guide that enlightens us. As we reflect on Greenwood's story, we are reminded of the importance of vigilance in the face of prejudice, the value of community, and the necessity of truth in history. We see how crucial it is to remember, to learn, and to grow from our collective past. The story of Greenwood is not simply a tale of a prosperous community and its tragic end. It is a call to remember, to learn, and to ensure that such a tragedy is never repeated. So we ask ourselves, what other stories lie hidden in the shadows of our past?